Hey everybody, this is a late night, well actually it's more early morning, late night vlog depending on where you're at. And it has to do with my concern about these forms and just how horribly they've been produced. And my concern bubbled over into an email that at times would seem to have gone off the reservation and they come back. But overall, my point was that there's a boring sameness to all of these forums. You have a panel of people or person that asks questions. The candidates respond to those questions, and we learn nothing. The forums have nothing to do with how the office of the mayor of Oakland is actually ran, and the different ways that it has been ran over the different administrations that have existed, going all the way back to 1931. And but for my purpose, in my experience, back to the late 80s and let's just say the 1980s and 1970s through today, we've had a lot of changes. But what's going on is that the people who are running for mayor now have no idea of what we did in the past, and they have no history of what was done. For example, Oakland mayoral candidate and former District 6 Councilman Lauren Taylor recently said that he would be the first to implement an Economic Development Corporation of Oakland. Well, folks, we had an Economic Development Corporation of Oakland in the 80s. And I also reintroduced the idea, couched with an April Fool joke directed at Oakland Mayor Libby Schaff, my god sister, in 2017. And I did so because we needed an organization, a true economic development organization that did business retention and did business attraction, and we weren't doing it. Okay, we weren't doing it. So that gives you a taste of the events that have transpired that have made me really angry. I was trying to find a softer word regarding how Oakland government just doesn't seem to be motivated to make change, how the people running don't really know how, and how people just are so set in the ways that we can't do anything that they don't want to consider anything outside of what other organizations and people have introduced to this point. For example, it's this constant refrain of adding taxes, not paying any attention to our historic use of tax increment financing, and those who don't want to think about it will just say that's Zennie's idea, as opposed to the fact that we had an active redevelopment agency, as did 397 other offices in California, municipalities and special districts. And no, they don't try to learn from it at all. Zero. And so no surprise, there was a draft infrastructure financing plan written for Howard Terminal, buried in the database of all places, The Athletic, that presented a $2.5 billion tax increment financing revenue stream. Century Urban created the draft report. It was incomplete. We paid, I think, Century Urban almost $1 million did the city of Oakland. The first bit of reports they issued had awful errors in tax increment financing, costing us $1 billion minimum in tax increment revenue we could expect from Howard Terminal. I kid you not. And then the infrastructure financing plan I'm telling you about right now, Century Urban used a 2% increase, which is allowable by law, and they used a 4% increase in assessed value annually as a test, as the evaluation, which is safe because the actual rate of growth in assessed value down in that area, and for most of Oakland, has been 6.3% or greater. All right? So we've been robbed of a lot of money that could help us. And you should be angry, but none of you are. And that is disturbing. Very, very disturbing. So I wrote this email letter to the group, and I'm reading it to you. I posted it, and it went like this. Excuse me. And bear with me because I'm teeing up my text, okay? It says, "Greetings, everyone. I will issue this view," and this is in the context, you have 3:47 in the morning. This is in the context of an email chain that was, I don't know who started it, but it produces, all the media types, forum producers, that sort of thing. And I think Peter Liu had a particular view regarding these rules that say, well, if you don't raise 75,000, you can't be a part of it. And I understand what he's saying. But to me, because that happens all the time, there is a bigger issue with this one. We're not getting a platform where you're able to really evaluate what these candidates can do in the mayor's office and how they think about running the city, okay? At any rate, greetings, everyone. I will issue this view. These forums have become increasingly monotonous and at this point, valueless. The organizers ask the same questions. The format of audience, passive viewer, is the same, even when who asks questions is considered. And none of them reflect how the city of Oakland actually works. So the discussions start out as interesting, but then they become laughable. But they do reflect one problem. Why Oakland has degenerated to a point where its own electorate does not care to self-engage change. The number one problem is we've lost special interests representing what we've lost. Has anyone considered that for the A's, Raiders, and Warriors, the booster clubs, loss of those teams, the booster clubs, once the actual Oakland promotional organizations are gone? Same is true for the total of 20,000 businesses lost since 2020. And with that, the census estimated 14,000 Oaklanders who have left. The real number is greater. Then there are those who have died. Many of the people who remain do not at all know of the Oakland that existed before the year 2000. That was 25 years ago. By contrast, my first job out of Cal, grad school, was with the Oakland Redevelopment Agency, and I was hired by the same man who was later the project manager for the Oakland bulk and oversized terminal. Yes, the same project that some idiotically call a coal terminal. By contrast, from 1983 to 1999, my Montclarian column competed with that of Oakland Tribune's Peggy Stinnett for most popular, and I generated more mail in 2 weeks than the Montclarian had ever seen in its history. And in 1996, I managed to score a hat trick. I was Montclarian columnist and economic advisor to Oakland Mayoral Hugh Harris. And that was before I became Oakland's first blogger and vlogger. So I span, here's the point, 2 different generations of communication and ways of thinking. One without the internet and one with it. The former generation is more interested in institutional detail. The latter, more interested in image, which one would call virtue signaling. The movies had longer dialogue, the books were of extreme length. So today you can't start to understand how to wrap your minds around a city built of another time and how to fix it today. And how you approach the forums reflects that. If you have doubts and need an example from afar, I point to Ron DeSantis. The Florida governor believed he could just take Walt Disney World for the government, My first thought was that something I memorized 10 years ago would block him. That's right. The Reedy Creek Improvement District, passed by the Florida legislature in 1968, it formed Walt Disney World into a city-state, with an effective legal bubble designed to shield it from the stupid decisions. I put accidentally study decisions, but it was stupid decisions that often follow those that hate to read details or be bothered with them. That describes much of society, including the governments today. No surprise, Ron got smacked right in the head by the Reedy Creek Improvement District. And while you may think it's dead, it can be brought back to life under one change. And what's left is still the Reedy Creek Improvement District for the most part. And why did he and his people, talking about Governor DeSantis and his people, get smacked in the head? Because, like most couch potato ideologues of today, they just don't bother with details and hate reading. I was attracted to urban planning at 8 years old, and the desire to build a city from scratch at 10 years old because of two books. One, The Art of Walt Disney, and a section by Peter Blake called The Lessons of the Parks. And the other, before that, called The Modern Metropolis by Hans Blumenfeld. Yes, I'm aware that Mr. Blumenfeld was a communist. I was not. Eventually, I wound up going to Texas Arlington for their undergraduate program in city planning, watching in horror as they got rid of it, leaving me to design my own major. Then focusing on Berkeley for city planning, grad school eventually. Only taking what turned out to be a sour visit to the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, which did not have its blank together regarding urban planning then or now for that matter, and a professor, Avis Vidal, who spent more time mindlessly talking with my interview partner because she was white and had friends in England. By contrast, Berkeley was the best 2 years of school I ever had in my life. Go Bears. It was Professor Mike Tietz at Berkeley on a walk from Worcester Hall down to what was then called Cafe Roma and later Cafe Strata, Bancroft College. And on the very day of the explosion of the Space Shuttle Challenger, who told me, it's okay to think big, just do it well. Mike saved my life. You see, I had invented a new proportion system because I thought the golden mean proportion system used in architecture and urban planning was illogical in its rules. And our visiting professor, Richard Crowan, who looked like an odd mix between Ichabod Crane and Roger Moore, James Bond, right? And anyway, he proceeded to make fun of me. Although he did say something to me that stuck in my head. He said, Zennie, we sat down to talk after the D he gave me, which is, you don't start off grad school with a D in a class. But he did that. He didn't have to. He did. I worked hard. But he was trying to make a point. He said, Zennie, you have an eclectic mind. You need to discipline your thinking. I was crestfallen. But at any rate, what I saw was all manner of wrongs in planning, and I wanted to right all of them, which is a tall order. I came into Berkeley wanting to establish what I called a unified field theory of planning based upon the work of John Friedman at UCLA. At any rate, Berkeley prized thinking, and still does. Mike Tietz, C. West Churchman, the father of systems thinking, Sir Peter Hall, Professor Steve Cohen, the head of my thesis committee, and Peter Hall. I did mention Peter Hall. And the legendary Fred Collignon, who later ran for mayor for Berkeley, if you know Berkeley well, Alan Jacobs, and Betty Deacon. And I should throw in David Dowell, too, in real estate, and Dave Vogel in the business school. My Cal classmates, including Kofi Bonner, who I had lunch with in Detroit last year, and my friends like Mike Silver and Greg Haywood, and Mike just gave me a copy of his book, The Why is Everything, and my ex-girlfriend Lauren, who is still good friends with me today. And they allowed me to be me, and they still do. Anyway, what you say and the DeSantis types say today reflect that fact of lack of attention to details. What they're used to, and you reflect, just repeats the solution approaches that cause these problems we face. You all have too much in common with Ron DeSantis. The way you all do your forums offers no avenue for gaining better leaders, to gain better leaders. No avenue to understand how decision makers think. Note that. No way to gain a better understanding of Oakland or urban development or public financing. My 2014 Oakland Sports Forum was and still is the best one ever. Chances are you weren't around for that, just saying. But given all the flotsam I've been exposed to from this awful period in Oakland's history, I had to make this. I had to say this. If you want to see why Oakland is where it is, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. If you can't fix your thinking, or look back to see what was done and why it was done in the past, how can you figure out how to fix the city, let alone determine who can? Best regards, Zennie Abraham. And I want you all to think about that, okay? There's too much of this rush to do these forums, no thought about if we're getting anything out of them. And more often than not, many people don't even see the forums. So what's going on here? And there's no team up. Everybody's got their thing. WAPA's got their group. And then you had this organization over here with that group, or the league over there. And, you know, it's ridiculous. And yet, the same type of format. It almost feels like an ego play. In fact, that's precisely what I think it is. It's not doing Oaklanders any good, folks. We need to try something different. I know what that is. And I set the example with the Oakland Sports Forum. I'm poised to do better from that if I can gain time to really sit down and structure it. It is in my head, though. But I want, beyond me, to share my view with others. I want you all to start thinking and looking in the mirror and saying, and just be abstracting your thinking. How can I do this better using the best and least expensive available digital technology, including cell phones, vlogs, blogs like ours? You know, really being innovative, teaming up with folks, having unusual uses, special codes, making it exciting. You got to do better, folks. All right, I'll see you. Subscribe to Zennie62 on YouTube and bookmark ZennieReport.com. Oh, you would say, I got to show you a Zennie report, by the way. I'm very proud of my site. First of all, this, if you haven't seen it before, that's the front of Zennie62. This is, it was here. Oh, wait a minute, let me refresh this so I can show you what's going on. There, see? That's it, right? Ta-da. Okay. See there, that is. Okay. And, which will, I hope, come up. Yeah, there it is, and I'll freeze that. Okay, so I don't get any feedback, weird feedback. It's actually something I have to do very quickly. And then I'll show you the other part. Very proud of the construct that I built. Now, take that part away, put this in, put that in there. Yep, hit save. And what I'm doing now is I'm adjusting ZennieReport.com to put what I just showed you at the top of the page, but I have to make some quick adjustments. So I have to be careful, of course, for security reasons, right? Very important to take care about what you're doing. Quick edit. Make it sticky. Update. Nice to see my automatic systems are working. Ah, yes. Okay, so if you go to ZennieReport.com right now, this is what you're going to see. There, see? ZennieReport.com, Zennie Report News, okay? There, okay? And then just scroll down. It's thumbnail. Oakland vlogger Zennie Abrams email to Oakland Mayoral producers at Oaklanders. And then you can simply open that like so, right? There it opens. Loads pretty quickly, doesn't it? And scroll down. And all you have to do is click the arrow. And voila. Not bad, huh? See? That's web portability, folks. Web portability. A concept that goes back to early Web 2.0 days, and the good folks who established the company called Widgetbox, where a man named Ryan Spoon worked there. In fact, you can see my interview featuring Ryan Spoon right here in Zennie 62. Ryan Spoon now runs Yahoo Sports. Good for Ryan. At any rate, I have been obsessed with web portability for a long time. It's too bad other media organizations have not followed along, and it's too bad that some organizations like Google have been want to kind of stamp it out a bit, you know? Bad. I remain. Good night, everybody. Or maybe I should say, good morning. See ya.